So, we have to inform you that Christian did not make it. Okay. Unfortunately, the doctors did what they could.
Christian is dead.
This is Courtney Clenny, hours after she stabbed her boyfriend Christian Obumseli after a heated argument in their luxury apartment.
Oh my God. Christian died? Can I please have a hug? Am I allowed to do that in here?
OnlyFans model Courtney Taylor Clenny and Christian Obumseli were seen as a picture-perfect couple, but behind that online charade was an ugly, toxic and abusive relationship.
Yes, and I am so sorry.
Just shut up and let me slap you.
On April 3rd, 2022, at around 4:40 p.m, Christian was stabbed in his apartment by his girlfriend Clenny. He was later rushed to the hospital, but just an hour later, his death was official. Clenny claimed self-defense. Her lawyers alleged that she was the victim of domestic abuse, but according to state prosecutors, Courtney was not the victim, but in fact, the abuser. So what's true? Victim or killer?
What else do you
I was told I was going to get a chance to speak.
Go ahead, Courtney. What's going on? Now's your turn.
Are you going to listen?
2 nights prior to Obumseli's death, April 2nd at around midnight, Courtney had called the cops. Her concern was that her boyfriend wouldn't leave her alone.
My boyfriend. I hate him on the okay? He hasn't paid any. I don't care. I'll hold it down. But I broke up with him about a week ago. I had my mom fly out. She stayed with me for a week. She tried to get him out, and he kept sleeping in the elevator room inside of my extra couch. And somehow, I said, okay, Mom, it's cool for you to go home today. I think I got it from here. I literally took her to the airport this morning. I stayed in my apartment all day. I didn't take my dogs out for 8 hours because I was afraid that when I came down here, I was going to beat him. And when I did come down, I walked my dogs, and he was telling me he wouldn't leave me alone. I said, can I please just walk my dogs in peace? We're not together.
Courtney tells the cops that she and Christian broke up a week ago, yet he continues to stalk her, waiting in the lobby for hours just to talk to her. But the officer explains that because Christian has his belongings in her apartment and has lived there for more than 30 days, they cannot trespass him from his own house, despite the fact that Courtney pays all the rent.
Can I, with respect, can I please? I just feel like I'm not being heard. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I had a lot of opportunities to call y'all, and I did not. So when he's following me around this dog park, I said, there is no, your time is up. That's it. And then all of a sudden, he followed me in the elevator, and I said, don't follow me.
All right. So what do you want to say?
I want to be exonerated, I guess, of anything wrong. And I want him, okay, the police are here. I want a restraining order against Christian Obumseli.
We don't issue those.
Because, no, I'm serious.
Courts.
Can I do that? Where
you have to go to court. You have to go to downtown.
But how can I make myself first? Because I know him, and he would do it. How can I make myself first?
You gotta get there first.
Right now, I have not always been a victim, but right now I'm a freaking victim in the situation. I'm scared to go downstairs and walk my dogs. I just walked him and I told him, you don't have a chance, and now all of a sudden this is all happening.
What's his name?
Christian Tobetchuk Obumseli.
Christian?
Please, just don't get me kicked out of my own apartment.
We just want him getting, we just want him.
I'm scared of him at this point.
Courtney then tells the officers she wants a restraining order against Christian. When the officers ask if this was an issue of domestic violence, she responds by saying, I'm just very scared, not knowing that 2 days later, Courtney would fatally stab Christian in their apartment.
Operator Jones, what is the address of your emergency? Ma'am, listen to me. You need to stop screaming on the line and give me the address.
3101. 3101. Can't feel my arm.
Ma'am,
my boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am, what is the address?
What's the address, baby? 3131 Northeast 7th Ave. Please, God, please, come see my boyfriend.
Ma'am, is this a house apartment or a business?
127453582.
Is this a house apartment or a business?
Baby, I'm so sorry. Baby.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
If you have a stab wound to his shoulder, you can sit down.
What do you mean he has a stab wound on his shoulder, ma'am?
Yeah, he's bleeding from his shoulder.
You guys were supposed to take out your dogs to the park, right? And then what happened after that?
Like I said, a little bit blur.
Yeah.
I was doing laundry and watching a Christina Randall, or listening to a Christina Randall video, and tried to call my mom. She didn't answer the first time, and then he came back with a Subway sandwich. Before he left, he recited exactly what I wanted. And I said, I'll text what I want to you. And he said, I know what you want. I said, no, you don't. He recited it to me before he left. And he got it perfectly right.
According to Clenny's phone records, she called Christian at 4:01 p.m. from her house, where she claimed that her boyfriend was out getting a Subway sandwich. She called him again at 4:33, the time when Christian's key fob recorded that he had just entered the apartment. Approximately 10 minutes later, Courtney called her mum. The call lasted 6 minutes until 4:49 p.m. In between her call with her mother at around 4:46, neighbours began calling building security, reporting a disturbance in their apartment. Building security called the police immediately. At 4:49, Courtney calls her mum for a second time, this time lasting a little over 7 minutes, until 4:57, when she hangs up and immediately calls 911.
He came back, and I said something about, like, oh, are you gonna, like, reshare your location with me? Like, did you want to share it? I mean, it kind of, like, turned into, like, a little, like, argument or something. And then he told me to reshare mine, and I was like, okay, yeah, I will. And then I didn't do it immediately. Don't know what I was thinking, but it just said something about, well, what if I'm somewhere you don't want me to be?
Okay.
Which I wouldn't have been. I love him, but just like, you know, maybe you don't want to know where I am. I guess maybe it would just, like, hurt him because he was pressing me, and he ended up pinning me against the wall, and then, I mean, I said, like, choking me on the floor. It's just like, they were looking at my neck, and I was like, I mean, I'm not saying, like, choking me, like, you know, whatever, but I mean, he had my, like, neck, like, and this happened twice before, where I couldn't breathe, and I was on the floor. I could not breathe, and I don't think that he was trying to kill me, but I was scared, and all 3 times I have been scared. So yeah, I'm on the floor, and he had me pinned, and lets me up. I'm on the, get my mom on the phone. Obviously, it was a big deal at this point. By the couch, kissing for the kitchen, I was in the kitchen. And then he just, like, I could see, like, all the whites in his eyes, and it was, like coming at me. And so I grabbed one of these knives. My mom got me for Christmas. I grabbed one of them, and I was like, I swear to God. I swear to God. It was just like, I mean, I grab and be like, don't come anywhere closer to me. Because, I mean, earlier, that was happening 2 other times, I couldn't breathe. I'm sorry. I couldn't breathe. And it's very scary. And I just think, like, just like this kind of thing where I was saying, like, do you know if he's okay? If he's choking me and he's angry enough, he might, like, I mean, this is different, I think. But if he's, like, choking me or, like, pinning me or something and I can't breathe, he might go too long. So I grab a knife and I said, don't come anywhere closer to me. I had absolutely no intention of using it. I'm on the phone with my mom, and he's coming at me like he's gonna grab either the phone or, like, the knife or something. And so I was just like, I was like, don't come any closer. It's coming at me, and I threw it.
In the interrogation, Courtney claims that she threw the knife at Christian because he was aggressively charging at her from a distance further than 10 feet. The only problem with that story is that, according to medical experts, the wound that killed Christian was a close-range stab.
Do you recognize this? Yes.
What is this a photograph of?
This is a photograph of the sutured wound in the upper left chest.
During the second day of the hearing, the state called upon Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Kenneth Hutchins, who had analysed the stab wound that killed Christian Obumseli.
How exactly would you describe the wound?
It's a sharp force injury wound that has nice, clean, sharp margins. It's extended open. It was 4.4 centimeters in length.
So, in regards to the wound itself, what type of injury did that knife wound lead to?
It went down into the soft tissue and through the muscle and injured the right subclavian artery.
Dr. Hutchins, if you could explain, was this a stab wound or an incision wound?
A stab wound.
And what are the differences?
Well, in general, an incised wound is longer on the skin than it goes into the body. A stab wound is measured shorter on the outside of the skin than it goes into the body.
And in regards to this wound specifically being a stab wound, how far into the body did it go?
Approximately 8 centimeters.
And how much force specifically would be needed to say, breaking the skin for a wound like this?
If the point of the knife is sharp, it takes between 8 to 12 pounds to get through the skin.
The prosecution's goal was to use Dr. Hutchins' testimony to prove that Courtney didn't throw the knife, but in fact stabbed Obumseli in close proximity. But her legal counsel managed to call into question that there wasn't concrete evidence that suggests that she didn't throw the knife.
Now in this case, this is the Global Cromova stainless steel knife, GS14. It's a very sharp and thin knife. Did you do any research into this knife before you made your determination?
No.
You do understand that the weight of a knife can make a difference when it is thrown through the air, right?
I'm not an expert in knife throwing.
Would you agree with me that throwing a knife into a stationary object could be different than throwing a knife into a moving object?
Yes.
And that's because a knife throwing has velocity, and a person moving in that same direction has a certain velocity as well, right?
Yes.
You were made aware that Obumseli aggressively moved towards Courtney at the time she states she threw the knife, right?
That's the information that I have, yes.
So, sir, you cannot say that Courtney Clenny did not throw this knife, can you?
That's correct.
Over the course of these hearings, the state showcased numerous occasions which evidently showed that Courtney Clenny was the perpetrator of psychological and physical abuse. Her lawyer, Frank Prieto, and his team disputed these recordings and said they should be inadmissible in a trial as they are extremely misleading and provide no context as to what happened prior to the footage.
That's word. I asked you so many times that I don't know, and I apologize, but you hit me.
Her team went as far as to say that Courtney was a victim of human trafficking and that Obumseli was the worst type of abuser, stating that he would manipulate and abuse Courtney when nobody was around. However, during the hearings, there wasn't anything concrete that suggested anything other than the fact that Courtney was malicious and vulgar to Obumseli.
Mr. Obumseli is dead today because of the toxic relationship and that he was in denial of being physically abused as well as mentally abused.
Larry Handfield, an esteemed and honourable lawyer, presents a case on behalf of the Obumseli family during the hearings.
He was referred often as the N-word. That still didn't stop him because of the love he had for her. The story that is being painted is that the defendant was the victim of violence. Come here, let me slap you. Those are the words from the defendant to Mr. Obumseli. Is that the language of someone who's afraid for their life? Someone who's a victim of abuse? Absolutely not. That is the language of someone who is controlling. Let's look at other words. I hope you enjoy your stay in the hospital. When he went to the hospital, he didn't tell him who was responsible for why he was at the hospital, even though he was cut up in his face.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object.
Courtney's attorney, Frank Prieto, objects to Mr. Hanfield's statements.
Mr. Hanfield is an amazing attorney. We all know his reputation in the community, but he's here in the role of a victim advocate. He's not here to comment on the strength of the evidence, the strength of the state's case. That's a legal argument that the state attorney had an opportunity to address.
But despite his efforts, Courtney was denied bond and remains in custody. Her trial date has not been yet confirmed, but is expected to begin early 2024. So what do you think? Liar, narcissist, abuser, or victim?